People used to think you were crazy if you invested in Bitcoin, but now the biggest investment firm in the world, BlackRock, thinks that you should reconsider, especially if you already invest in gold.
You're right, Dave. I think there's been a real seismic shift. It used to be that there was a career risk if you either invested your client funds in Bitcoin or even, considered it your own if you're kind of this legendary, traditional Wall Street investor. But I think now we're turning the tide and it's a potential career risk not to consider Bitcoin as part
Wow.
of your portfolio or your company's treasury portfolio. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today.
Awesome. Yeah, and just it's a day after Thanksgiving. I think we're all just hopefully stuffed from our tofurkey or turkey or whatever you had, or just tired from Zoom meetings. But we want to hang out with everybody. So we got 7 people watching now, and thanks to everybody who shows up later. We want to chat. We're going to just explore what we think. So please make comments. We love interruptions, and we love to respond to your comments, ask your questions. So when did you think it will be so Max, it's really interesting what you said. You think it's a career risk or will be a career risk not to consider it. When do you think that's going to happen where not even mentioning Bitcoin is going to get you kind of weird looks in the hallways of Wall Street?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in this macro environment where a lot of traditional portfolio managers are of the opinion that the traditional 40-60 kind of portfolios is no longer in play, especially if we're moving towards negative interest yields. You're just not earning money on your bonds, so where are you going to get this alpha? And I think some of the legendary investors are starting to talk about that, especially those that come from kind of this macro environment of how does everything fit in between COVID and the kind of returns in traditional portfolios. So I think if you are just kind of sitting in the traditional way, thinking that that's how you're going to earn money, it's you're in for a bad time.
Yeah.
We always used to hear these stories of you put your money into a bank account and compound interest at 6%. Well, we're not seeing that at all. If you're a big institutional, you might, depending on where you are in the world, be losing money because just to hold money in an account.
Yes.
So you should do that. You should do that actually with Bitcoins.
Just I want to ask you,
and earn 6% annual in Bitcoin.
Right? That's crazy. Joaquin, have people been you've been in the industry, I think a little longer than Mags, but definitely longer than me. Have you noticed that people, when you just mention Bitcoin, have they been treating you a little differently? Do you have any examples of what's been different lately?
I mean, I've been receiving emails from people that I know for a few years. They say, "Hey, you are a visionary. You've been with Bitcoin for a few years. Nobody believes you." It's still those people. They didn't even bought Bitcoin yet, but they are just kind of seeing the news, seeing what is happening. And I'm still thinking that we are in a very, very early stage.
Yeah. I think it's one of those scenarios where maybe they have to connect with you a few times and maybe connect with some of their other colleagues. They have to hear it a few times, I think, before they're like, oh, wait a minute. Yes, maybe I should look into that. So, I mean, the main topic is, I think, BlackRock. And I kind of wanted to point out why I think that's significant. And I want to hear, your opinions too. But for me, so traditionally it came from a low carbon kind of environment where, we used to look at corporate social responsibility and companies shifting towards it. But what really changed in that space was when BlackRock CEO and chairman came out with a letter in 2018 to all CEOs of, Fortune 500 companies. And he says, look, guys, if you do not look at environmental social governance issues, we're not going to do business together. And this is the largest asset manager in the world saying, hey, you need to consider, corporate social environmental responsibility.
Mags, what was your reaction when you first heard that?
Oh, it was in the low carbon space. It was just such big news. Holy crap. This is the world's biggest kind of potential stakeholder that boardroom people in boardrooms listen to, and they're like, BlackRock is saying you need to consider this. It was massive news throughout, and it continues to be.
Did you think people were going to listen?
I think so, because of where it was coming from. Like, that's big money talking. And so when I hear now the CIO of BlackRock saying, we have to look to beyond gold, start considering Bitcoin, and because it has certain advantages, that speaks to me in the same way that 2 years ago, BlackRock made a major shift in how companies and boardrooms think about environment and sustainability. So I think this is actually quite a big impact, just based on what I've seen in the low carbon space.
Okay, so what was the biggest signal to you, Joaquin, that the tides are starting to turn? Mag says it's BlackRock for her. Like, wow, this is huge.
Just from what I've seen in the corporate social environmental space, yeah.
Yeah, what's your biggest signal? Was it not getting made fun of anymore?
That is going to happen every time for a few years, more years, in my opinion. But I think one of the biggest signal of this year is the MicroStrategy with Michael Saylor. He has been researching on this, and he has been putting his skin on the game.
Yeah.
And every time I listen to him, it's like he's pushing even more to one limit that he tweeted last week. We are going to go 100% Bitcoin, no bonds, no treasuries, no gold, no real estate, everything into Bitcoin. So
for people who don't know who that is, who is that?
Sorry?
So people listening who don't know who that is, who is he?
Oh, okay. So Michael Saylor is the founder of MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is a big company who offer, data and analytics and services. So this guy is not. I mean, he's one of the longest CEOs in a company. He's been a CEO since 2000.
Wow.
But the thing is, he's a very, very clever guy. He actually studied to be an aerospace engineer, and he was training to be a jet pilot, but he couldn't make it because of one of the exams that he had to do at that time. So because of that,
so he's got a lot of
company, and
I'm hearing is he's got a lot of credibility, and he's not an investment like banker, but he's investing the company's money. Is that what you're saying? Like,
and his own.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Max, that's a huge shift we're seeing. It's like, it's not just like he's saying, like BlackRock is asset management, and that's a huge deal. But this is somebody who says, like, look, I do other trends, other data, but I'm risking my company's like long-term assets in this because I don't believe it's a risk. That's kind of what he's saying, right? Yeah. So for me, I thought honestly, it was a live stream that you and I, Max, did.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago or months ago, where we had a guest who he manages family offices. So like people with generational wealth trust him and are asking him, can you diversify a significant amount of our portfolio into Bitcoin? I'm like, wait, like these conservative people, like financially, who like own half of New York or whatever these people do, like huge barrier to entry. They now, like, they couldn't buy Bitcoin, but they want him to and manage it. To me, I'm like, wow, that shows like a level. These people do not take risks. They want their great grandchildren to have money.
Well, that's what they call kind of institutional smart money, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like retail, like I'm going to push a button to buy. But but just to put BlackRock into context, they have about almost 7.5 trillion assets under management. That's a huge chunk. I mean, MicroStrategy is impressive because they put their entire, cash balance into Bitcoin, and it was about at the time it was almost half a billion. But we're talking significant money that if they allocated a tiny percentage, it would make quite the impact. I think they're both in their own right very impactful because Michael Saylor kind of paved the way in how companies and the boards that make decisions, they think about what to do with their cash holdings so they don't lose against inflation. And then that was followed on by Square, which is the Twitter CEO also co-founded Square. That was a significant shift because that was there's a lot more factors at play for a company like Square because there's Michael Saylor owns a significant part of his company, so it's not as big of a hurdle to kind of convince his board, whereas Square was a bigger deal. And while they allocated a smaller percentage compared to MicroStrategy, they what was really important there is they created a blueprint for how they allocated, so that other companies that are publicly listed can have an easier time and just be like, copy paste, like, hey, look at that, we're going to, do something similar.
We're at time now. We're trying to do shorter live streams, everybody, so we can come to you more often. It's a holiday week, and Joaquin launched an awesome course for any of you Ethereum programmers out there who speak Spanish. But so we're going to wrap up now, and we're going to say thank you so much. I hope you guys have a whole weekend. We're thankful for all of you. Our wrap-up question is, are you going to risk your career, Mags, on Bitcoin?
I already have. I went to Bitcoin 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I left the government and the golden handcuffs to pursue a career in this space. So
what about you? I mean, I heard about you have a small little YouTube channel and brand called BTC in Espanol. So are you committed to Bitcoin, Joaquin, or are you just kind of giving up on it?
Hey man, he's had
the
longest running channel since 2014.
Yeah.
Education. So there you go.
Yeah. It's hard to get him on a live stream because he's got his channel so successful. Yeah. I'm keeping my options open. Yeah. No, I love.
Dave's gonna be a TikTok star.
Yeah. I tell you.
Start doing Bitcoin education on
Dave is a TikTok star.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. So, anyways, thank you guys so much. Risk your careers on Bitcoin. Don't blame us if it goes wrong. Hopefully it won't, but be smart about it. We'll see you guys next week. And like I said, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you to everybody who watches later. And it's so great to hang out with you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving weekend.